I had the intuition that I wanted to become Chief HR Officer one day, but I didn't know anything about it.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Milverton, CEO of Links Educate. This is Talent is Everywhere. We're here to talk about how to keep talent and how to develop talent in order to build a strong business. We'll interview leaders to hear their best experiences of how they invested in people. Today, our guest is Sven Sommerlatte, who's the Chief Human Resources Officer at Boehringer. And before that, he had a long career at Sanofi, where he moved up a series of jobs in HR to finish as VP Head of Human Resources for the Global Consumer Healthcare Business Unit. He has in common with me that he's half French and also half German. So welcome to the podcast.
Bonjour, Sylvie.
Great to have you. So today we're going to talk about different ideas that you've shared in a book you've written about career strategy specifically for HR leaders. And then I wanted also to link that, your ideas in the book and how you've been able to apply that to the way you're building the HR function at Boehringer. But back to your book. So it's called Successful Career Strategy, an HR Practitioner's Guide to Reach Your Dream Job. And my first question is, and I guess maybe what inspired you to write the book, but you kind of feel like HR leaders, you're like the experts of career strategy, the experts of guiding people. And sometimes the expert spends all the time helping everyone else and doesn't help him or herself. But just interested in, what inspired you to write the book and how do you think of the goal of it?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Sylvie. And as a matter of fact, I applied the content to myself, or I would even say my own experience inspired me to write this book. For example, I moved up the ranks of the HR function fairly quickly. At a relatively young age, I was vice president for what was called the Intercontinental Region. I had 50,000 people, so to say, in that scope of responsibility. And someone said to me, Sven, if you want to become one day CHRO, Chief HR Officer, then you need a country experience. And you need to think about your experience base. And that's what I did. But it meant moving 3 steps hierarchically down. But it was necessary, for me to then be able one day to be credible for that top job. And so I think that's what career strategy is all about. And I learned it, so to say, through my own experience.
And what made you realize you should write a book about this? What do you think that HR practitioners are looking for that you need to teach them?
Yeah, of course, in my job as HR, I speak to hundreds and hundreds of individuals who seek for advice. But on top of that, I also started a YouTube channel and I engage with thousands of people in social media. And I really understood that people lack of guidance to manage their own career. One interesting thing I noticed is that even people who spend a lot of time to think about the strategy for the company they work for or for a product that they take care of because they are in charge of it, so they are familiar with strategic tools and they know about the importance of thinking strategically about the future. Very often they don't apply it to themselves. So for some reason, people don't do that enough to think strategically about their career, but it is really important if you want to be successful.
And so what is your sort of methodology for doing this? If you think of the young Sven who has been given advice to, go counter to all of, we're all driven people. It's all up, up, up. And so, if you think back, what is the kind of practical advice that you've put in your book that you would have given to your young self?
Yeah, there is a methodology. First of all. And secondly, there are a number of tools that I describe. But there are also a few guiding principles. And maybe, Sylvie, I can first allude to those. The most important one, I believe, is to understand what do you feel passionate about. And that was also something that I experienced myself because I started my career after management consulting. in a high potential program to become a general manager. And I noticed one day that I had a different passion. I noticed one day that I was really energized from interactions with people, and that I could never really get enough of it. When others thought, okay, I've had 10 interviews in the context of a specific project, I have enough of it. I don't want to see anyone. I was still eager to meet more people, and not only to understand, directly the topic that I was interviewing them for, but I was in parallel, so to say, describing their personality. And more, I was also used as a sparring partner for people decisions. And so I that helped me. I was luckily having that experience early in my career. And then I made the bold move to say, I stop this general management career pathway and I move into HR, because that was my passion. And ever since, I can't get enough of it every day, So the first and most important principle, I believe, is to try and understand what is your deeper desire. And it is not always so easy, because in school and through family or social environment, you're steered in a certain direction, which is not always the one that really gives you true fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And do you find that a lot of HR professionals are, motivated by helping people and engaging with people, or they can come at it from a lot of different angles?
You can come from it at a lot of different angles, but I still believe, and I do hope, and I observe in my own team, at least, I believe, a lot of passion for people. We have that even as our motto in HR. We call it passion for people. You have to have an intrinsic interest in people, I believe, when you do a job, the HR job, or, and it is true for other areas as well. You need to have that intrinsic interest. But then, of course, that is not enough, Sylvie. And I believe that the second guiding principle is to think about what would be your dream job. What is your career aspiration? This ability to project yourself. And it is not always easy to do, because we don't know so much about certain other positions. When I was still junior in the HR function, I had the intuition that I wanted to become chief HR officer one day, but I didn't know anything about it. So it was important for me to find that out. And that means that you interact with people who have that type of responsibility. Ideally, you even shadow them. And then you really find out, does this really meet my expectation? Is this really what I want to do? Because suddenly you discover there is a lot of stress related to it. There is heavy travel related to it. Leadership roles can really, be extremely time consuming. You have to want to go the extra mile. And that, for example, in my case, was something that was important to understand. Otherwise, you head in the wrong direction, And so what is the dream job that you aspire to is the second important principle, I believe. And I think it is interesting. People don't invest enough time to find that out. And very often they come to see me and they say, no, I don't really have a plan. I think it is better to do it in a more opportunistic way. And I'm not against grabbing opportunities, but it is so much better if you can assess opportunities in light of a plan.
Right. And also to have information, because I feel like I take a few things from your comment. One is figure out what your dream job is. And so sometimes one's dream job is like the imaginary job that you see someone else having on LinkedIn. And you think, oh, what an amazing life does this person have? I wish I had that role. I wish I had all this accolades. But then when you start to see like the day-to-day of the life, you can, reassess, which also makes me think, I worked a long time in big companies. And what happens when you have big jobs in big companies is you fill up your whole calendar with a lot of internal networking. And often it means that your exposure to a variety of dream jobs is sort of limited. And so there's something about reaching outside and building a network of people outside your internal networking so that you can get more information about what would be your dream job. What's it like? What does the person live? And ask a lot of questions.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. It is really important to understand, does it match my personal needs? They are important. You have to clarify that. And does it really fit to this professional aspiration that I have? I can share with you good news, Sylvie. In my case, when approximately 4 years ago, I was recruited for this chief HR officer job at Boehringer Ingelheim. I was wondering, I still had an interrogation in my mind. And, I was wondering, am I going to be absorbed in operational day-to-day problems, or am I going to have the space, the possibility, and also the support from the company to really implement the things in HR that I feel passionate about, which are learning, which are career advice, which is creating a great working environment, and so on and so forth. And good news, I must say, I have that space. So it does not always, so to say, go in the opposite direction of what you ideally aspire for. I think I was even surprised to what extent I have possibility to shape things. Gestalten is what the Germans, you have the Gestalt philosophy, psychology, which is basically this spirit of shaping things, which can be extremely fulfilling. I really love it to do that with my team. But yeah, you have to check it first.
Yeah, and then once you realize, I suppose, okay, this is where we want to go, and let's say that, so we have two guiding principles so far. One, it's like your passion. Second, figure out the dream job. And then I imagine that some of the third piece would be, map out the plan to figure out where am I today and where am I going to be tomorrow, and how much time do I have to get there.
That is so right, and I think you're spot on. I mean, concerning time, I made an interesting observation through many career counseling conversations. People very often overestimate the time that they really have. You have the feeling my life is so to say forever. But if you say to people, look, an average duration in job is 2 to 5 years. Ideally, not less than 3. Let's take an average at around 3 to 4, let's say 4 years, maybe. And then you divide the time you have till retirement by 4. And then you know how many steps you have ahead of you to reach actually your dream job. And usually people are very surprised because they thought, without really reflecting about it more deeply, that they would have many more opportunities. No, it is only so many. Now think hard. How do you want to use that time? You can't really waste. Usually people are more advanced already when they even start to think it, and then they can't really waste any step. And therefore, the third principle really is try to understand as precisely as you can the experience components, skills, knowledge, experience that will be required for you to be selected one day for your dream job. I mean, put yourself into this competitive situation. Usually there are other candidates. What are the skills, the knowledge, the experience that will be required for that job? What is, as you just said, the gap between where I'm standing right now and, that requirement? And how can I most efficiently fill the gap? And that is a good career plan. It's nothing but knowing where do I want to go, knowing what is the experience base that I need to build up in order to be selected one day. That's really, I think, what a career strategy fundamentally is about. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, and it reminds me, when I read a lot of CVs and people looking for a job and what's their objective, and so many people write, to find a job where I can add value and best, utilize my skills. But that means nothing. In fact, almost what you're saying is that as individuals, we should each sit down and say, what is the value I want to add and what are the skills, and connect the dots for yourself and then be able to communicate it to your boss, to your company, and say, this is where I'm going, and therefore help me get there.
Absolutely. And this is why, to be in the driving seat, I call this to be the CEO of your own career. I mean, you would expect from the CEO of a company to have a clear plan and to know how to get there and to be proactive in it and to drive it and not to wait for it to happen through opportunities that would fall from the sky. They don't. You can influence things. I encourage people every day. I did that just today to say, look, be proactive. You can make it happen, but you need to know what direction you want to take. Today again, I interacted with a person, and we agreed that there would be those 3 different routes that are possible. But at some point in time, it's no longer an advantage to have lots of opportunities. You have to take control of your destiny.
And so what do you recommend to people to do, like just in practical terms, kind of have like a working document or sort of check in with themselves every January? Is it like every quarter? Like how should we, because this a lot is also resonating with me. I mean, I'm on a path, but one needs to like not just let the time evaporate. Yeah. So practically, how does one do it?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of writing things down. Descartes, the French philosopher, I think said, what is written well is also thought through well. Writing it is important. But I would also very much recommend that people don't do that by themselves. In my book, I describe, a career council. What does that mean? It is to bring a group of maybe 2 or 3 people together, maybe someone who knows you personally very well, but also people who know your industry or your functional area very well. And it is very, very helpful to bring that group together maybe 1 or 2 times per year, first to share your plan, ideally in a written form, but then regularly to update it. I have been offered this type of position externally. What do you think? Would that be a high risk route to take, or and so on and so forth? Because please get me right, a plan is not to be established one and never then challenged again. Eisenhower, the American president, I think said, plans are nothing, planning is everything. It is about the process of planning. So career strategy is not a static thing. The assumptions that you have made, the opportunities that you see, all of that should be updated on a regular basis. And ideally, it should be a basis for discussion with your career council.
Yeah. And I've noticed, like, in the moments of my career when I was going to make a change, when I was able to write down, like, I'm looking for a position doing this in this sort of company, in this sort of place. First of all, you articulate it to yourself, but then you can tell other people, because your network, they want to help you. And if you just say, I'm looking for a job where I can best utilize my skills, I'm like, but what do you do? What kind of job? What kind of place? And so by focusing it, I feel like it focuses yourself and then helps people help you.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more. Once you have defined the criteria, once you have defined your aspiration, that's then you will have these criteria in mind, and you will be able to analyze the world through a clear lens, and that helps a lot. I do agree.
And then how have you sort of, shifting a bit to your role, your CHRO role, like all of this philosophy about how people should grow careers and develop themselves, like how have you implemented that in terms of the way, you're building the function, and especially just thinking about career development and learning and strategy around HR? How are you linking it?
The first thing is, when I arrived, I said to my HR colleagues, we should spend 50% of our time interacting with people. Because knowing people, being in contact with them, that's of crucial importance. It was a bit of a shock, and people still ask me, how to do that with all of the workload. But fundamentally, and this is connected to this passion for people, I would also say, the ability to assess individuals is, in my eyes, the core competence that HR people have to have. And that is not an easy one, because there is nothing more complex than assessing individuals. I am together with my partner, for example, since 30 years, and I still don't understand him really. It takes very long to really understand an individual. But we need to be very skillful in that. But beyond that, message to my dear HR colleagues, we have established an HR strategy, a very clear, again, as you said, what is well reflected can be well written. And we have established that plan. We got the endorsement from the board of the company 2 years ago. We are now implementing it. We have structured it in different waves. We're just finalizing wave 1, where we put a lot of emphasis on learning and skills management. We have created a Boehringer Ingelheim University. We have implemented a virtual campus, which is a digital learning platform. In addition to that, we are building up academies. We are really encouraging people to grow their skills, and we are encouraging leaders to manage the skills development within their teams. People say skills is the new gold. I mean, maybe that is a bit of a slogan, but we are in a fast-moving world, and I absolutely do believe that, especially in knowledge-based industries, and the pharma industry is a highly knowledge-based industry, the skills that you are able to build in your organization and the ability to respond to new skills requirement as an organization is a massive competitive success factor. And so, we are building that muscle, and people are very thankful for it.
It's so refreshing to hear like HR issues like at a board level. I mean, I think every board talks about HR issues, but to really make it like a strategic priority is unique. So I sort of have a question about, how you're able to do that. And then a follow-up, in terms of the level of detail you can go into, like I always thought of pharma as already like a very highly skilled kind of industry where a lot of people are going to have a PhD and where you're going to have a lot of skills. So tell me about this like board level important skill shift of what I perceive as like an already highly skilled industry.
You're right. It is a highly skilled industry. But just to give you an example, we have discovered a few great new molecules. They happen to be in 3 therapeutic areas that we're not operating in at all currently. It is the area of mental health, where since 30 years, new therapies are lacking, and our researchers have found great molecules that seem to be of benefit for patients. It is breakthrough since 30 years. It is fantastic. And this is also so incredibly fulfilling. The purpose that we are pursuing to help people get better and to save lives in many cases. So, mental health is one area. Oncology, cancer treatment, specifically, for example, in lung cancers. Again, we have certain new indications with new therapies that are very promising, and the area of obesity as well. So, we are operating currently in many other areas, but these 3 big new therapeutic areas are opening up. Can you imagine the intensity of learning to bring 53,000 people to become knowledgeable in their different functions, but sufficiently knowledgeable from production to research to support functions to actually activate these opportunities. So that's the kind of challenges that are ahead of us.
Right. And that, it's so inspiring because that's like what HR should be. It's like especially in this, world of AI, when presumably we'll have many tools to do all these tedious manual processes that we don't like. And this whole strategic thing to say, okay, there's a strategic shift in the company to these 3 huge opportunities, and HR fundamentally is like an enabler for that.
It is an enabler for that. And it was yesterday, as a matter of fact, that we had a very, very intensive interaction in the board also about the company culture. How do we want to shape this company culture? That is also an important area where we are very active.
Right. And then maybe, to sort of finish up the arc and, starting on like the individual career and, up to the high level of the strategy, just like the role of leadership. I mean, we all say leaders need to be involved in learning, they need to support, but like what actually should they do? Like for, if you think you've got 53,000 people, all of these, leaders and managers, and they know it's important and they also have busy days. And so how do you think about your advice to leaders? Like, okay, learning is important. How can they really help their teams?
Absolutely. It is true that leadership is a tough task. It's not an easy thing. I do believe that leadership is a lifelong learning journey. You will always grow, and you're always hopefully confronted to new challenges. I do believe, maybe this is a slightly provocative statement, but I do believe that leadership is in reality all about self-awareness. Great leaders and great leadership, I think, is based on deep self-awareness. And the more challenging leadership situation you're confronted to, the more you can learn about yourself. So it is a circle, you learn about yourself and then you become a better leader, and then you're exposed to new situations. And personally, I think that's one of the reasons why it is a great privilege to be in leadership responsibilities, because you get exposed to those many learning opportunities. And it is, I believe, extremely fulfilling every little step you make, where you understand that you are more grounded, that you are more serene with yourself, that you know yourself better, and that this is the platform for you to be able to help others to grow, to support others, to maybe be a role model in certain areas. I mean, we need to be very modest. And to give others more space, to provide to others more support, to be able to step back, to take distance, to give people space to grow and to experiment, maybe even to dare to share some advice from time to time, being very careful, because it's not about I know things and I teach you. It is much more about I give you space to grow yourself. But that's what I think leadership is all about. Ultimately, it is about growing as a person.
Yeah, that's really well said, right? The privilege that we all have to help the people in our teams grow. And when we think back to the people that helped us get to where we are now.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Great. Well, this has been a great pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And if people want to find you, I guess they can look for you on LinkedIn and YouTube.
Absolutely. Yes. Very happy to interact.
Great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Sylvie. Thanks to you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Talent is Everywhere. Make sure to subscribe if you like what you heard, and give us a follow on LinkedIn to continue the conversation on all things career mobility and talent development. Is there a topic you'd love for us to cover in a future episode, or a guest you'd recommend? Drop us an email at hello@linkseducate.com. And if you're looking for support on your talent development strategy, head over to linkseducate.com to learn more about our career mobility solution. That's LYNXeducate.com.